Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Jay.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. We just said that you would start. Let's introduce ourselves, though. I'm AEM Jeff, a.k.a. Jeff Howard, and I guess, one of the mouthier commenters on the Blogging Head site. And you are?
My name is Jeffrey Jeffers. Many people know me as Jay, and around these parts I'm known as JJ. And Jeff, apparently there is a ongoing dispute between the White House and Fox News. I believe the earliest comment from the Obama administration came a couple of days ago, I believe on the 21st of October, from President Obama himself, in which he said he was not going to lose sleep over the situation. I took that to mean he didn't want to undercut his advisors, but also wanted to stay above the fray and would probably like the situation to go away. Of course, Fox News has had it out for the Obama administration since Barack Obama was inaugurated, and probably even prior to that. But I think relevant to our topic, I think one of the key flashpoints in this dispute was when Barack Obama did his whirlwind media tour to talk up healthcare reform, and he granted an interview to virtually every media outlet save Fox News.
That was a pretty direct gesture.
I would say that was a pretty obvious overture. Yes. I'm not sure about the timing of this, but somewhere along the way, Van Jones, the Obama administration's green jobs czar, said Republicans are assholes, which may or may not be true, but Fox News definitely provided extensive coverage of that, the result of which Van Jones was either forced or felt the need to resign from his position.
Although, as I recall, that wasn't the stated reason either for the attacks on Van Jones or for his departure. I mean, I guess that was a trigger. And now thinking back, I don't recall actually what the big controversy that actually swirled around Van Jones. But he had said something a bit broader than that.
I believe he had signed some sort of petition as well
several
years ago, perhaps calling into question whether the Bush administration had prior knowledge of the 9/11 attacks, which is, of course, a very vaguely worded proposition.
Right, exactly. But that's my point. A lot of this seems like atmospherics based on some perceived slight from one side to the other, and then other details are being used as sort of the whips, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this conversation really isn't about what we're talking about. It's about something else. And when Obama freezes Fox out of the out of kind of the accepted media circle that is given any particular access. Where am I going with this? The larger questions involving what role Fox plays in the overall conversation is what I'm trying to get at here.
Sure.
Fox seems to have set itself up as an advocate of a pretty specific point of view. And,
no argument.
Yeah. And fair and balanced notwithstanding. Yeah. And the Obamas, as you said, I mean, ever since Obama beat Keyes for the senator's seat, you know, he's had a target on his head as far as Fox is concerned. Although I'm not quite certain anybody at Fox really had any great love for Keyes. But in it, Alan Keyes being the one-time presidential candidate, also black, was recruited from Baltimore, if I recall correctly, to run against Obama.
He got 10% of the vote or something minuscule.
Yeah. Obama definitely had. He was given a gift getting the seat as the Illinois senator. But Fox News is. I'm better at this one. I know I'm not being recorded. Anyway, Fox News.
I understand.
Fox News has taken on this role, like I said, and one of the arguments that's been floated, contra the Obama administration's point of view, is that there's supposedly a difference between the news side of the organization, the editorial side of the organization.
Right.
So you've got people like Glenn Beck who say what they say, but that's not supposed to be reflected in the news coverage. The argument against that, so far as I can see, is that there's evidence. There's video evidence of Fox News people at Tea Party rallies, setting the crowd up, giving the crowd lines. This is before the cameras were officially turned on, before the quote unquote report that Fox was going to present was going to be officially recorded. So they're participating in the event. They're taking a point of view. It seems to me that their editorial their editorial policy is driving their news coverage in explicit and I think rule-breaking ways.
Okay. Well, I don't have any direct knowledge of Fox News' involvement in the Tea Party phenomenon, and I'll defer to what you say here. If I find out that it's true that Fox News is doing what you say, then my reaction is, oh my virgin ears. But I think there's an old saying. I'm not sure who it's attributed to. Maybe you'll know, or maybe someone in the comment section will know. Never wrestle with a pig. You'll only get dirty, and the pig will like it. And so I think there's the issue of, first of all, whether it's in the Obama administration's best interest to actually engage in this tit-for-tat with Fox News. If we have time, maybe in a few minutes, we'll talk about whether it's sort of, admirable or scrupulous to behave the way you have to when you get into a dispute with Fox News. So first of all, do you have a view on whether the Obama administration is sort of well advised to take up this fight directly with Fox News?
Not a strong one. I think that the notion that Fox is being elevated by the administration deigning to take notice of the fight is kind of an evidence-free assertion. Fox they're a player. They're the real deal. It's not some third-tier blogger who's taking pot shots. Who the administration would just be silly to really get into a fight on that level. But Fox has a well-regarded Sunday morning show. They have a real news operation. They have enormous market share, and they are an opinion leader. So they're in the game. They're part of the establishment. They're part of the whole highest layer of political dialogue in this country. To ignore them completely, well, maybe that would be a good tactical choice. But it seems to me that taking it on and framing the argument, saying, well, Fox is doing this, and this, and we think that this breaks the rules. Now, Fox has every opportunity to to answer those charges. And in fact, every time I log on to the internet and I look at my Google News summary, I see a headline about how Fox is being picked on by the administration, and it always turns out that the source of that particular headline is Fox News.
Sure.
So, are they gaining some market share? I bet they probably are making a little bit of money on this deal, and certainly they're playing it up. Fox News is, and certainly they're playing up the they're playing up the controversy for all it's worth. But on the other hand, the people who are going to agree with that point of view aren't necessarily the people who are going to be offended or take the administration's stance toward Fox and view it askance, you know?
Sure. You know, in my mind, Al Franken laid the definitive smackdown on Fox News several years ago when he wrote a couple of different books, and Fox News sued him for, I think, copyright infringement, and their suit was tossed out of court. I believe it was decreed to be lacking in law and merit. And I think the left has some surrogates who do some of the heavy lifting here. You know, any night of the week you can turn on MSNBC and either Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, or Bill O'Reilly will win the so-called worst person in the world award from Keith Olbermann's program. And so it's not as if the Obama administration, is the only one available to sort of point out that, the features of Fox News, I believe, that you pointed out earlier. Incidentally, the saying that I referenced earlier, I think that you and I are in agreement that Fox News represents the pig in this situation. The only dispute is whether or not the White House ought to be wrestling with the pig.
Right.
And I don't know, I'm not sure if I have any strong feelings either in terms of whether it's in the administration's tactical interests to engage in this fight. I find it a little unseemly that the White House would use the so-called bully pulpit to address a cable news organization, but I suppose that's merely a sentiment of mine.
Let me ask you a question, Jay. I mean,
sure.
Would you make a distinction? So far, all I can recall Obama saying about this directly is he's not losing much sleep over it, which is pretty dismissive, and he's staying pretty far above it. But when we talk about quote unquote the White House, there are various people at various levels, and it seems to me that you can modulate a response by who you assign which messages to, and that being the case, the quote unquote seemliness of the message seems to me something which might be a little bit more subtly massaged. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. I'm definitely happy that Obama hasn't been on the front lines of this dispute, and I think this might be a good segue to hone in on the topic of the White House communications chief, Anita Dunn. She gave a speech in June to a group of high school students in Washington, D.C., and I just want to get the quote right, so I'll read it verbatim right quick. She said, the third lesson, quote, the third lesson and tip actually comes from two of my favorite political philosophers, Mao Zedong and Mother Teresa, not often coupled with each other, but the two people I turn to most to basically deliver a simple point, which is, you're going to make choices, you're going to challenge, you're going to say why not, you're going to figure out how to do things that have never been done before. She then goes on to talk about Mao Zedong's situation as a sort of underdog revolutionary in China while Chiang Kai-shek controlled the military and the cities, and that people didn't take Mao seriously as a military or political challenge to Chiang Kai-shek, and asked him, how can you win when these odds are against you? And I think the money quote from Mao is, you fight your war, I'll fight mine. Okay? So, Fox News obviously has had a field day with this. Like I said, this was in June, but Glenn Beck actually reported on this story on Fox News, I believe on October 15th. Okay? Since then, Anita Dunn has said that she was joking, and that the reference to Chairman Mao as one of her favorite political philosophers, certainly with a strange juxtaposition to Mother Teresa, certainly seems plausible that it was intended as a joke. I watched the video. I think it did fall flat. But what do you think about this?
It was a bad joke.
It was a bad joke.
Yeah, the reference to Mao seemed pretty innocuous, no matter how you look at it. What was she saying? She was saying, think for yourself, think outside the box. A lot of fairly obvious platitudes that people are always telling kids to do. The fact that she happened to mention Mao, and the fact that she has said certain things which have angered certain members of the right have been cause for a lot of kind of big, broad attacks. But I don't think that there's anything in what she said that anybody looking at the issue from a nonpartisan point of view is going to find particularly offensive.
Well, I suppose by definition, then, my point of view is not completely nonpartisan, because while I think in our earlier communications I indicated that Glenn Beck found Anita Dunn's words objectionable, and so do I. I'm certain that we come to this conclusion for different reasons. I think Glenn Beck, he seems to think that Anita Dunn literally holds Mao Zedong as one of her favorite political philosophers, and believes that the substance and content of his philosophy is something we should emulate or something. Okay, I don't believe that, but
you do believe
I suppose
in irony.
that I do believe in irony. And she, incidentally, after she said she was joking, she was sure to point out that she believed the folks at Fox were bad at spotting irony. But, she did more than just mention this attempt at humor about Mao being one of her favorite political philosophers. She went on about, as I said a few minutes ago, about his role as an underdog revolutionary, and how I suppose his perseverance somehow can provide us a lesson that we can apply to our own lives. And
well, he won, right?
Surely he won. I suppose it's just that I believe that when highlighting the accomplishments and strengths of murderous dictators, we owe one another a certain level of sort of rhetorical care in how we approach that. And I don't believe that her comments were particularly careful, and I don't believe they rose to the level of expectation that we commonly hold one another to, in terms of particularly talking to a group of high school students.
Since you're talking to children, I'll grant some of what you're saying. On the other hand, if we need to frame every statement with every possible caveat, the English language quickly becomes burdensome. And again, forgetting for the moment that she was talking to children, you have to assume a certain level of context. And even though she was talking to children, I think you have to assume that those kids, by the time they had reached high school, probably had been educated in who Mao was, what he represented, and were well equipped to withstand a single jocular reference to the chairman without having their poor, carefully constructed political personae somehow damaged in any particular way. I mean, I just don't see the foul.
Okay, well, I wonder if I could motivate the discussion a little further, and I hope you'll grant me some rhetorical leeway here. But I mean, suppose that it was several years ago when George W. Bush was president, and someone like Scott McClellan. I know that Scott McClellan doesn't hold the exact same position that Anita Dunn does, but people know who he is, so I'll use him. And he was speaking before high school students, and he said something like, I would like to teach you a lesson from two of my favorite political philosophers, Adolf Hitler and Desmond Tutu. And then he proceeded to talk about how Adolf Hitler was a struggling artist in Austria, but that he persevered and that he really knew how to work up a crowd, and that as a communications person he can really respect that. If there were, there may or may not be, but if there were an equivalent organization on the left of Fox News, I would imagine that they would very aggressively criticize Scott McClellan for the comment. And I wonder if, I know it's a little passé of me to drop a Hitler bomb on you, but I'm just trying to illustrate the point that it seems like there is a point at which someone's contribution to the world has been so horrible and tragic that the level of care we exercise in talking about their instrumental strengths has to be pretty high. In the hypothetical that I've given you, do you think that would be an apples-to-apples comparison?
Not exactly. Not exactly.
Okay.
Because the semiotics surrounding Hitler are different from the semiotics that kind of hover near Mao. For instance, there's no equivalent Godwin rule in Mao's case. Mm-hmm. Mao has not become a universal symbol of something loathsome in the same way that Hitler has. Okay, a different example might have elicited a different response from me, but the particular example of Hitler just brings along with it a lot of baggage that just isn't there for almost anybody, even Stalin. I'm not saying that Hitler wasn't as bad as Stalin or Mao. It's just a question of sort of the symbolic surround of a particular idea bringing along with it a lot of baggage.
That's very interesting. The idea, I'm not sure that we're going to solve it in the next 2 or 3 minutes, but the idea that the sort of symbolism that's been taken on by a certain historical figure in the zeitgeist is the sort of ultimate test, of whether or not it's appropriate to single out sort of instrumentally or practical attributes of a certain historical figure, sort of aside from whether or not one figure is intrinsically as bad as another. Right. Comparing Holocaust, I think, is a very difficult thing, and like I said, we're probably not going to solve that here.
But let me throw one more example at you, though. What if you substituted Alexander the Great? Okay, I expect my history of my knowledge of history from that time isn't that strong, but I'm guessing that if you compared Alexander atrocity for atrocity with any of the above, and adjusted for population levels, he probably didn't have as many people available to kill, right?
Right,
but
compared to China, right?
Right, but the analogy falls apart then too. If you had substituted Alexander for Hitler, the example just wouldn't have had any strength at all.
That's true. That's true. And in that case, I think it becomes interesting again because people on the right seem to have a different understanding of the symbolism of Mao, perhaps.
That's an issue.
Than people. Right. Right, and that we don't actually share the same feeling surrounding the symbolism of Chairman Mao, and maybe that's the take-home lesson. And I think in terms of answering the question about Alexander the Great compared to Chairman Mao, I think I may be saved by the bell. We're
yeah, we should probably wrap.
We're entering 20-minute land, and if we continue, I'm not sure that it's going to air. But I was worried if whether or not we were going to have enough to say, but it really flew by, and I really enjoyed it, Jeff.
It was a good time, Jay. See you on the boards, man.
Right on. Thanks a lot.
Take care.